So, welcome everyone to this class on T3 industry. It's mostly focused on the big picture, how it works, where you get the materials and stuff, and not so much on the actual buttons you need to click to launch the jobs. I'll talk about it at the end, but Jinx has already done an amazing video on T3 industry on the Brief Dojo channel. This is not meant to replace it. It's just nice to have different viewpoints on these kind of things. I know I had trouble starting T3 industry even with his guys because, I don't know, my brain is wired differently, I guess. But it's very good. So, to start with, T3 industry, the goal is to build T3 cruisers, T3 destroyers, such as Jackdaw, stuff like that, and also the T3C, the cruisers subsystems. They are made from, in immense majority, from materials taken from wormholes. The basic chain to build these. The basic materials in blue are the resources taken from wormhole. You have wormhole gas, salvage from the sleepers you kill in combat sites, and sleeper relic that you get from hacking relic sites. Specific sleeper relic sites, which are actually very hard combat sites to do. The first step is going to be to create your reactions. If you're in nullsec at the time of this recording in Pureblind, there was just Nathanor encode with the module to do these reactions. They're called hybrid reactions. So there are if I'm not wrong, I think there are 8 different kind of reaction for hybrid gas for T3Cs. Each one of them uses 2 wormhole gases, a small amount of fuel blocks and minerals, and you use a reaction BPO. It's a reaction like a BPO that cannot be researched. It's seeded by NPC, so you will just have to eat the cost and just buy it, either at procure it from Jita and stuff at a market at like an up cost, or just go buy them in the correct NPC stations. It's easily findable on Google. So the first step of your process, you turn the gas into reaction product. The gas is very heavy. They are talking about implementing compression for the gas, which might completely change the prices and how the market function on gas and reaction products. But right now, it is immensely profitable and easier rather to react the gas in the wormhole where you have it or where you're coming from. So if you can procure the gas directly taken from a wormhole or from people huffing from nullsec, diving into wormholes and huffing and directly giving it to you in nullsec, it will be much better because it's heavy to transport, and if you have to import it from Jita, that will eat into your profit margin pretty quickly. It's also very rare, like the reaction products on market are pretty they're pretty expensive for what they are. It's really advised to do your own reactions. Then you will want to build subcomponents. The subcomponents themselves are useless. They are used in the final step. These use reaction products and salvage. There are around a bit less than a dozen, I think, different subcomponents. No, less than 10 subcomponents. So you use reaction products and a bunch of salvage from sleepers. So salvage varies. You will use BPCs mostly to build them, and then it's your choice where you get your BPCs. I don't know if the Dojo program offers them, or like the free BPC program. Since I build them a lot in wormholes, I have my own BPOs that I copy, but at first it might not be, it's a huge, it's still an important initial cost if you want to buy the BPOs and research them yourself, so might not be the best bet for you. You'll have to do your own personal cost analysis on that. And then it's just an industry job, reaction, project, and salvage. You do subcomponents. The time really varies. In general, they're pretty quick, but like a couple of them are really long to do for the amount needed in T3 production. So you will need a decent amount of production line industry slots to do them. And then you assemble for like a destroyer or at the end, a final T3 product, a destroyer, a cruiser, a subsystem is going to ask for a list of subcomponents along with the correct BPC. And these BPCs are annoying to get. For that, you need to find a sleeper relic. They are called yellow loot. They are by themselves pretty heavy compared to other relic loot you get in nullsec and stuff. But one relic, when you use invention, you invent it into a BPC. It gives a decent amount per volume, so like you can import a bunch, and the relics are actually pretty cheap. I mean, they're okay. So you import a bunch. I think, well, personally, I always use a decryptor that gives the most chance of invention because I'm lazy and I don't want to fail. I'm not sure it's the most efficient one. I think it's the one Jinx recommended in his video, and I honestly don't know much about invention and what's the optimal solution, so I just take the lazy approach. You invent sleeper relics, you get a BPC for... Here you have to choose, because there are a bunch of different relics. Each one of them comes into 3 different states: intact, wrecked, and a second one damaged or something. And it basically improves, like the rarest one gives you the most chance of succeeding at inventing the BPC. The cheapest one are not very likely to succeed. Again, you'll have to do the cost analysis on this. I'm pretty much, I use either what I found myself or just get intact from Jita. It's not a huge cost in the final product, but it's still not negligible. You really should still take that into account in calculating your profits. Which coincidentally I don't really do actually. Well, whatever. And so you'll have different types of relics. One for the hull. You invent it and then it gives you the option of choosing which hull you want, Loki, Tengu, Proteus or Legion. There is a small version for doing the T3Ds, and there are 4 versions for each of the subsystems. So you'll want to build a decent amount of that to have a backlog of the BPCs you... how can I say? To like always have the BPC you want. Or being able to invent it quickly when you want it, and not go searching for the relic you're missing because you don't have the specific subsystem you need. And then you just assemble those components and this ship BPC, and you create the final product. In terms of time, the T3C hulls are pretty long. I mean, they're like a day and a half, I think, each. The subsystems are extremely quick. They're like 20 minutes each, and they sell for like 40 million, 50 million. The profit margin is not necessarily great on them, but just to give you an idea, like what if you want to build like fitted T3Cs, or at least T3C plus subsystems, you can like run in parallel a bunch of hulls on low runs to build them, and then just use one slot to build at the same time enough subsystem for all of them. So that's a basic overview of how to build them. Does anyone have any question about that? If not, I'll continue. In terms of SP needed, it's relatively SP heavy need. I was calculating this 7 million SP almost from scratch with Eveman. So to build the T3s, you need well, for cruisers, advanced medium ship to 5, that's a million SP. For the destroyers, it's advanced small ship, starship, whatever. Starship construction, something like that. And then for each of them, you need the racial starship to 5, the corresponding one. And then to do the subsystems, you need to have a bunch of science skills to 4. I don't have the list of all of them, but yeah, so it's a decent amount, plus jury rigging 5, stuff like that. And then you need a skill for reaction. The most amount of time you're going to spend in terms of manufacturing time is going to be mostly on reaction and some subcomponents. So it really benefits from having from training alts to have more reaction slots, if you want to scale up, of course. So, and as I said, the final production time is rather short, especially subsystems. So not the easiest to get into, but I mean, I do T3 industry and I've never done T2 industry because I think it's much more focused and less confusing than T2. Now, where to acquire each material? So, the gas. It drops in wormhole gas sites that you have in either ventures or mining barges now. It's for the overall cost, it will be a high portion of the cost, and it will be most of the volume of the stuff of the initial materials. I suggest buying it in null and not importing it. You will need to import some, probably, but try to get the machine going. If you can encourage people to go huffing, I will try to do classes to encourage people to go huff, stuff like that. Or if you can huff yourself. Or you can try to negotiate deals with wormholers, so they can sell directly to you. That's to get the most out of your margins. The fuel blocks and minerals, to make them, they're made in K-space or mined in K-space. The ISK value is very low and the volume is consequently very low too. Either just buy them in nullsec for cheap, or if you can, manufacture them yourself from PI for the fuel blocks, for example. The salvage are taken from wormhole combat sites. The ISK value is very high. It's a majority of the cost of T3 manufacturing, because not a lot of them drop for each site, and a lot of people crab but don't salvage, which means the amount on market are pretty low and consequently they're quite pretty expensive. But the volume is extremely low. They're easy to transport, so you will probably have to import from JITA, though again, if you can get them from wormholes more directly, it's much better. The reaction products, as I told before, they reacted in the ethanol. This value is again high. I mean, it's the converted value of the gas. The volume is much lower. I suggest just react the gas yourself. Relic, it's a medium value, so not that expensive, but still. And I suggest just importing them from JITA. And I already talked about the BPOs and BPCs. They're seeded. You have to get the reaction BPOs, the subcomponent BPCs. If you scale, if you build a lot, buy them. Otherwise, maybe try to get BPCs to start. And again, don't hesitate to interrupt me if you want. Now, you should have seen on Slack, the Pings Dojo, I linked this, and if you're watching the video later, it should be in the description. I've linked this presentation, and in it are the links you can click for 2 out-of-game tools that I use to do my T3 industry. So there is a Google Sheet that is what was made by another wormholer. I will mostly explain it afterward. But another great tool is RavWorks. So why I prefer the Google Sheet, this sheet is actually how I learned to do T3 industry. And I think having your hands, deep in the Google Sheet and fiddling with the formulas and stuff. It really helps you learn the process and you have a much clearer picture of what goes on. It's also easily modifiable if you want to do special stuff. And it's made by Wormholes, which is much better. I don't remember which corp the guy is in, but if you make a ton of money with it, send him a couple ISK, he'll appreciate it. The cons is that there might probably be some bugs. That's totally possible, and I fiddle with a bunch, and I'm not an expert, so if you find a bug and something dumb in it, just tell me and I'll correct it, hopefully. And also, so I'll show you that you have a different different tabs to make cruisers or subsystems or destroyers, but you can do an ESI pool. I mean, you kind of have to do it half yourself, but you can do an ESI pool to get your stock. However, it doesn't propagate across multiple types of jobs, so it will take into account as if you had your full stock for building the cruisers and the subsystems and the destroyers. So you can't really mix and match. RAV works, it's much more plug and play, easier to do. You can save multiple structure presets if you're building in different places. There are probably no bugs. I think it's a pretty good website. The cons is I think it gives you less understanding of the process, though. I mean, there is a tree view and stuff that's pretty good to understand like which parts come from where. But it's not really modifiable, and it's not made by Wormholes, so that's a lot less fun. Can you tell me if you managed to access Google Sheet? Well, I'll take that as a yes or no. I will have pictures anyway in the following slides. How to use the sheet. So at the bottom there are multiple tabs. One for the ones at the right hand are the values and stuff. You want to change that, but the main one to use are the cruisers, destroyers, subsystems one. So you have this huge thing, and at the extreme top left you will choose your ship, which ship you want to build, or which type of subsystem, and then the amount of them you want to build. At the top you can change the manufacturing index, tax, structure cost. I actually have not really dived into that. It was already made by Surama, and yeah, that's actually a thing that might be a bit bugged and not super accurate. It should be okay-ish, but I don't think it changes that much. And then you get different sections. So at the top left, it starts basically on the opposite side. So like to build the legions, you need one legion, you need these components at the top left. Then you get the components hangar. It's if you already have some, they will be deducted from those you need to build. These are made, these amount of components are made by these amounts of polymers, the reaction products. You can write the number you have pending that are about to be made by your reaction currently being done, and also how much you already have in hangar. Currently all the hangars are tied to an ESI pool in another tab, but you can just put your numbers if you prefer. So you get the components built by the polymers, and then the polymers are built by these gas and these materials. You also have the prices of the base materials, and then the polymers are combined with the salvage. So it's just how you use it. It's relatively intuitive. And now I'll explain the strategy and small things you notice when you use a sheet. Let's say here is still on the example of one legion. If you switch between Legion, Tengu, Loki, Proteus for the T3C hulls, you will see that not a lot changes in the components. Actually, only one line. The superconducting radar amplifier. All the T3C hulls use the exact same components except for one that is tied to their faction. That's the only change between T3C hulls. You can check among the total price, the total gas price, the total mineral prices. You can see that the mineral prices is an extremely low total. I can say to just buy a whole batch, kind of forget about it. Even if you buy it at a bit of a premium, it won't eat into your profit. You also see that among the gases, the C540 and C320 are the most expensive ones. They are the high-class gas. They are the most expensive by unit. And so that's why they're, of course, the most expensive of the overall cost. But as I write here, some are annoying to have, the 50 and 60 in particular. The sites are not super valuable, so a lot of people don't have them. So you might have trouble getting them into null, which it might, I mean, it's honestly, these have mostly been an issue for me in my production lines, acquiring them rather than the high-class gas. And for the salvage, you can notice the cost at the bottom, 77 million almost. Yeah, it's a super expensive part. And in this case, especially the neurovisual input matrix. Be prepared to hate this one, it's the most expensive one. If you find good deal on that, just buy a whole fucking bunch. But yeah, they're right, sometimes other salvage spikes. It was especially prevalent at the end of the Delve invasion when everyone started building Tengus, and here you can see the it was, I think, the Scorch microgravimeters that were used to build the specific, as I say, the gravimetric Tengu amplifier. This one just spiked through the roof. The amounts on sale in JITA are not that high. And so you can pretty easily, if you scale up, pretty easily put a big dent in the market. So be careful of not getting scammed and buying at outrageous prices. A few other key takeaways from the other tabs, the Destroyer and the Subsystem tabs. You can see on the Destroyer tab that there is no selection at the top left to choose between the Hecate or the Jackdaw and such. That's because they all use the same subcomponents. And then in the subsystems, you can switch between core, propulsion, defensive and offensive, but you cannot choose between Legion, Loki, Tengu. That's because each subsystem uses the same subcomponents per type. And as we saw, the T3C hulls, they only have one racial subcomponent difference. What that means is that if you have a given stock of N components, you can build almost anything as long as you have the BPCs. There will only be very minor variations. If someone wants a specific subsystem, like a very specific Proteus subsystem, well, you need the BPCs for that one. But you will, if you've built another propulsion system for a completely different function for another, for Tengu, you will have the stock to make it. Which means it's always nice to have an extra random BPC lying around, because it means you can you can build on order anything. I don't know if Jinx still does it, but back in the Catch era, yeah, he would make you a specifically ordered subsystem, any one of them in less than an hour. And that also means if you're not answering to specific orders, but just selling to what sells the most on the market, exporting back to JITA and stuff, that means you can, as long as you have the BPCs, you can very easily pivot, because there is a very rough, at the bottom right of each of those tabs, there is a very rough profit calculator, and RavWorks also does it. The some subsystems are like almost ISK deficient to make. They're not, you don't really make any ISK on them. Some are very, very good. And it's the same for the hulls. Like, depending on a lot of market forces, they will come up and down in prices, and depends on the meta, of course. And so it's very easy, like when you've got a bunch of end components, to just pivot and make the thing that makes you the most money at that moment. I linked the T3 industry class of Jinx here. He focuses a lot more on the in-game steps, and he presents also his own process of how he did it back in Catch. And he also explains the invention part in details, because I don't really know much about it. So yeah, this is a quick class, and it's also from my wormholer point of view, but I really suggest you also go watch it. And I don't want it now because it's gonna be annoying. So thank you for watching. I'll take questions now, but if you're watching the video, you can send your questions or comments or insults or whatever by email to Lama Dzetsu. And thank you.